Yes.
This meeting is being recorded.
Up to date as of today, counting tonight's presentation, we are $1,333,791.
What do you mean counting tonight?
Counting tonight.
I mean, if we added
If
everything.
we added everything is presented as of tonight.
How are you?
Right off of analysis. So, and almost a 1 mil increase if everything stays the same.
Don't chop the
Well,
ball.
it's an inaccurate statement.
Yes, it is. Yes.
We're gonna have a 3 mil decrease.
Under current, though, it's to give you an idea. Okay, we'll start off with the library. Hi, Megan.
Hello,
Hi, Jess. How you doing?
can everyone see me and hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm not sure. Oh, here we go.
This meeting is being recorded.
All right, here I am. Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So I'm sure you've had a chance to look through the budget. Would you like me to go line by line through the changes? Or do you have any specific questions? We are requesting a similar budget to last year. We've made some internal changes within the budget, but no increases.
Just explain basically how your budget works and how you're not a town agency, but you're funded partially by the town, and how the trust works into that.
How the funding works? So we are funded 71% by the town, and the rest of our funding comes from the interests from our endowment. We also do a lot of independent fundraising.
That number's holding consistent. Questions for Jess?
Yeah, Jess, this is James Higgins. With the endowment that the library has, I serve on a number of boards where the endowments are receiving, less than favorable performing finances, especially over the last 18 months. Is that negatively impacting the library, in which we might be looking at a different budget, not in this cycle, but in the future cycle? Or do you foresee it being relatively flat in the 24-25 cycle, just so we have in the back of our minds what we should expect?
So we did meet with our representatives from Webster Bank in January when we were discussing this budget, and they assured us that there won't be any significant changes to the funding within the next year. We're fairly conservative anyway, so we're not anticipating any issues.
Okay. Very good. Okay, if there are other questions, Jess, I guess we're all set. Thank you. Next we have WPCA.
Want to start with that?
Well, you're doing all next three, aren't you?
Four.
What you want to do? 4th of July first?
Yeah, I was starting easy.
Okay, let's start easy. 4th of July.
Okay, so we're putting for the same amount we have in the previous years of $20,000. That's to do the $15,000 show in July and an additional $5,000 show during a festival.
Okay.
What's interesting this year, since the borough acquired the Lanxess property, we're actually looking at firing the shells off of the Lanxess property, which will allow us to fire 8-inch shells versus a maximum of 5-inch. So the way the bid works is it's still a set figure, and they design the show given that amount. So there won't be a lot of 8-inch shells, but the size difference should be very, very dramatic.
Maybe we should have said we use the 20,000 all for one shot.
We could.
Does that make sense?
For those that don't know, the larger the shell, the height, we get 100 feet of height for every inch of shell. So that would make it a show that's more viewable throughout the entire town and surrounding towns.
It also allow people to stage at Breed's Field, so it's It's,
So
right there.
how much more do the big shells cost versus a little, like,
I have a spreadsheet somewhere, but they're probably, an 8 is probably twice what a 5 is.
well, we don't wanna have half the shell.
Exactly. Well,
So what's the,
what's the plan? Well, I was only putting in for 5% at this point, of 5% 8-inch. You would get 58-inch shells,
okay,
and you get, 300 5-inch shells. So I mean, you're not getting a whole bunch of them, you're just spreading it out a little bit more.
but if you do
He was
20,000
saying, if you're
20,000
looking at
in
a
one shell.
25-minute shell
But the 20,000.
For what price?
at 15,
With some 8-inch shells?
yes.
Okay,
Because, I mean, even now, even the current show, not everything goes high, because I sit like right out in
No,
that
we
parking lot, so.
go from three
Right.
to 5.
Yeah.
We have, and then we would go from 3 to 8.
Right, that's what I'm saying, so, you don't need all 8.
No, you don't, yeah,
Yeah.
you don't want, it. You don't want
Right.
much time on the.
Let the other towns pay for their own. Right.
You want one show or two?
but as of, well, as of this time, we're doing one $20,000 shell.
Okay.
Well, I'm just, you have money elsewhere, think about it.
Excellent.
Okay, excellent.
Any other questions on fireworks?
Let them run.
Do I do engineering next, Jim?
Engineering?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll just go through each of the items that have changed. The salaries is up a little bit because we actually last year, as you remember, we had a decrease in staffing with the town engineer retiring. But we only had a portion of a year of the new GIS technician that started, so this small amount would bring him up to, the full-time position, which is, he's already full-time, but it's a full year, excuse me. Next is a $250 reduction, due to, 1 employee versus 2 of online longevity due to employee changes and retirements. Conference and dues, that's up to provide training, continued training for, contractual training for the street inspector. Environmental testing and compliance. This is up fairly significantly to cover costs for Thurston Pond Dam inspection, which is every few years, we have to have a professional dam inspection with photos following the state criteria. We still do twice yearly inspections in-house, but we need to do a complete thorough photo documented inspection. This also will cover our stormwater permits for each of our sites, the public works site, the parks site, the behind the police station and the transfer station. We have to have stormwater sampling and continue compliance of our permit for that. Which we've been honestly behind schedule on. There is a reduction to our phase 2 stormwater account, not making up 100%, but making up some of it. So it's down from 17.5 to 12,000 for our MS4. That's our testing for the entire town for our stormwater testing and compliance and our educational program and all that, which we do in-house. Next is a reduction of a communication line item for $240. That was a reimbursement for a town phone or reimbursement for a personal phone that was used for business. The new person has elected to use the town phone, so that is getting taken away. And the final item, which Fred is here, he can talk a little bit more about it, but he's looking for a capital expenditure for some new file storage, similar to what the building department has. It's a wall rack system. He's looking for the first phase of the program, which would actually be the fixed wall system, and then later on, you could get additional racks as needed that would go back.
Front doors.
I think it's an upright open system. Fred, is that correct?
Yes, if any of you have been in the town clerk's office or the building department, it'll be that similar racking. And that racking, anybody who's been in our office knows we can't stuff any more stuff on the floor. So basically, we're gonna use floor to ceiling racking so we can eliminate some filing cabinets and have some room to breathe and anticipate for future expansion.
So this will be the first installment of probably two, and I'm not sure that we would need this for the next one next year or several years in advance in the future.
Well, I mean, 3,000 is not a ton of money here, but what do these files look like? Are these like big files, small files, legal size? I mean,
So there's two sets of files. Some are 8.5 by 11, others are legal. So 8.5 by 14. And the racking, you can do 14-inch or 11-inch. And it gives us a great opportunity to get things straight once and for all. And I think you may be referring to the flat files from years ago where everything was scanned and everything's by street in the flat files so we can pull maps.
and is this something that cannot be virtualized rather than investing in shelves? Can we get like, I don't know, scanners or do something where it's completely virtual so we don't have to worry about adding physical space and just looking at virtual space in the future?
With respect to that, the flat files, they're all the original maps. Most of them are scanned, but almost every day we're pulling out the physical maps for one reason or another, where you have to find some really, really fine pencil marks or something with a magnifying glass. So the physical maps and files really can't go away. Part of it also has to do with records retention as far as permits, that we can't get rid of the paper because they were born paper. They have to stay. We have to keep the paper. But once born digital, you can eliminate some of the paper, but we do run into times where we really need to pull out all the backup to figure out what happened to a specific building lot or a street or something to that nature.
So the digital images you have are not necessarily fully legible. That's what you're going in because you have to like use an actual magnifying glass to look at something. Am I understanding that?
Yes, I'd love to have you come in and show you what we do.
Okay.
The
I mean,
digital, the amount of digital copies that he's doing are pretty impressive. So,
Yeah, well, I guess where I was going with this is maybe we need higher performing scanners so they produce better images, so we don't need to worry about the.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that we can throw away the original. I mean,
Oh, I'm not
especially the
saying anything about
Mylars.
that. I'm not talking about record retention here, I'm just trying to,
Well,
plan for
I
the
think that our
future.
scanners, correct me if I'm wrong, our scanner's pretty good. You know, we're filling Jim K's computer storage by the minute, so, because I think you're scanning like 95% of the documents right now, correct, Fred?
Yes, and we're constantly going back and rescanning some of the documents that were scanned 15 years ago by Kayla.
With a higher quality
right,
scanner.
okay.
With
Yes.
color. Then we had black and white. Now that's a big difference is they want the color, and that, you know, brought a whole nother layer when they were using some colors that just weren't picked up.
As far as file size, I could say that most of the other scans from the original scans were probably somewhere between 1 meg and 0.5 meg. But it's not unusual for the really high resolution scans to eat up 20, 30, 40, 50 meg at a pop.
Did you have a question, Megan?
Yeah, I just have one question. Fred, are these movable if your building was to move? Like they can come out of the wall and move somewhere else?
Yes, I believe they are, but I can certainly clarify that. Because the building department had the same situation where they ran out of room, and really it's just expanding upwards instead of horizontal.
Okay. That's all, thank you.
I'll stay there.
Jim, I have a question on the overtime.
Yes,
You actual expended 2021 was 10,000, actual expended was 14, but you're still asking for 10 this year. Is it, are you asking for the same amount because you have a person, you're fully loaded now, or should that go up to meet? I can't believe I'm saying this, but should we increase that overtime because we have 10 and 14,000
we
the
did,
past 2
we
years?
did talk about that internally, and the person who's doing the job now, is more efficient, and that he doesn't necessarily always run out when he gets called in the middle of the night if he feels that he doesn't need to. So we're hoping that we can, make this work. No guarantees, but,
Yeah, because we had a discussion a couple of years ago.
I
Yeah,
agree,
yeah,
and
we're
I
good.
talked to Fred about it.
Yeah.
That's what we're feeling, we're really hoping that we can hold the line on.
Okay,
Can I just add one thing? That most of the overtime is by state statute for call before you digs, and it
Yep.
depends on accidents, water main breaks, gas leaks, et cetera. So we have no control of trying to schedule it. When something happens, we have to go.
right, and that's what I was gonna say, maybe if you want to explain that to the
But-
board people, there's a lot of new people on the board, so maybe you want to just explain that real
Well, okay,
quick.
so there's the call before you dig system, where people, anyone doing digging has got, or is supposed to call the number, and then each of the utilities are notified, including us, and they have to mark out the utilities on the ground so that people don't rip them up. We mark out the storm system and the sanitary system, and everyone else marks out the gas, the water, and the electric and communication lines. So, if you call in an emergency, you've got, I don't know, a couple hours to show up and mark it out. So the guy theoretically has to leave pretty much right away, and go mark things out. We have made things more efficient by, giving them a laptop with all the scanned drawings on it, so that he can most of the time get things done. But there are mandatory minimum overtimes, and so that's what it is.
Okay.
But as I said before, sometimes there's overtimes that get called in at 4, but they're not really arriving there until later.
Yeah.
So yeah, theoretically, he's been woken up in the middle of the night with a call, and he can go and do it, contractually, but sometimes they're like, I don't wanna go, and I got,
Yeah. I have till 7.
I got till 7, I'll do it when I get in for the regular. day. So
Okay,
obviously, that's what we prefer, because it's good.
Yeah.
It saves us money, we're happy.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Jim on engineering? Hearing none, you want to do WPCA?
Sure, I'm sure Jeremy wants to stay here through the night anyway.
Absolutely. Yeah, you could be up all day tomorrow.
Okay, so, WPCA has a net decrease this year. And you may say, we got a new contract and we expected it to be a bigger decrease. Well, this is actually the second year of the contract. So you got the decrease, majority of the decreases last year. And what happened is we've got a significant increase in the CPI. But we also have a significant increase, so increase in cost, but we also have an increase in rent from the.
I just, the new members have no idea what you're talking about.
Pete, why don't you?
All right. So at the wastewater treatment plant, we are the only town in Connecticut where we don't pay sewer use fees. And the reason for that is that the amount of money that we pay Veolia to operate the wastewater treatment plant is offset by rent they pay us to rent our incinerator to burn sludge. So it's not exactly a break even, but it's basically a break even. What we take in is pretty close to what we pay. Now, what Jim's talking about is every year in the contract, the amount we pay Veolia goes up based on CPI, but also the amount they pay us goes up by CPI. So it's basically a wash. But overall, we're down from last year. Last year, we had a much more significant drop because it was the first year of a 20-year contract. So that drop is already built into this number. And then the only thing you missed was we also have a lower payment in when we get to bonding, et cetera, our bond payments, debt service are also less. So the wastewater treatment plant is without question our best overall department because we, for the most part, make a profit.
Excellent. That's why you're over there.
So he's there, so he's there.
Okay, so the first line item is payroll. That's down because we also had a reduction in staff. We eliminated the secretary position and combined it with another position. Then the next is the Veolia service fees. That's to run the treatment plant. That's up by 36,000. So that's the CPI adjustment. Sorry, should have brought glasses for the first time. Collection system is up for the CPI adjustment as well. The chemical costs are down and actually disappear. The reason why there's 67,000 is because it was a month and a half of our old contract last year. So now it completely is gone since we're all 12 months. And then insurance payments drop out because that's all wrapped into the insurance, chemicals, everything is wrapped into that one item. So we don't have all these extra costs that we got into over the long-term contract. We had changing laws and things that we kept adding little items. Those were all rolled into the new contract.
Grading the access road.
Grading the access road grading the access road, we've eliminated that item of $4,000. Jeremy in his grading this is actually doing the work in-house now. And is using the materials we make from the road to grade the road. So it hasn't cost us anything in a few years, you'll notice. So we're just removing that. And then in the mayor's plan, that road will be reconstructed. So shortly we won't have to be graded. Thank God.
I'm gonna make a announcement now, Jim. Tomorrow is the day that the announcements are made for the community investment funding. And Naugatuck is on the list of approved projects to be voted on. So it's never over till it's over, but it looks like we'll be getting the funding to start building the industrial park this year, including that road.
So any questions?
I'm always curious on the Penn Central railroad right away fees.
Well, that's to cover our piping underneath the railroad.
They just seem ridiculous.
It does, doesn't it?
Been there for years, I know. Any, besides, are any major projects coming up at the waste treatment plant?
Well, we've got our CMOM order that we're complying with at this point with the bond funding we put in, and we've got some lining projects. We've got, so CMOM, it's an EPA requirement that we maintain our collection system. And we've got 150-year-old collection system, one of the oldest in the state. And for the most part, we do emergency repairs. And we do TVing, and we do fix cracks and broken pipes as we find them. But EPA has went and visited every treatment plant in the state that has got a capacity of 10 million gallons a day or greater. Of course, we're 10.3, so we fell right in there. And they said, you guys have to actually have a real detailed plan to manage your collection system, track it, computerized data, which we rolled into the contract with Veolia. They still have, they have to perform all the heavy lifting paperwork wise, but the borough still has to cover the physical cost, the physical collection system improvements. So right now we have, and you'll see this in the capital request in a few weeks, $120,000 a year line item. That's gonna have to go up in a few years to cover all the required repairs, to keep up with things. Right now, we have our bond, from the contract that's gonna cover us for a couple more years. While we work through that money we put in the bond, but that's happening. They're also in the contract, there was, capital upgrades to the incinerator and to the treatment plant, that are being completed now. They're gonna take another couple years, due to the time it takes to get equipment, that they're up doing. But these improvements, plus the required maintenance on the plant should mean that we're good for the next 20 years, unless the state changes our permit and says, guess what, now you are treating for this chemical. And they do have a couple of chemicals on their horizon, arsenic, phosphorus. You know, they could always say, you gotta treat for phosphorus, you gotta treat more for mercury, or, you know, I don't think that's gonna happen for the next 5 years. But we do have a permit that hasn't been renewed in, I think, 3 or 4 years, it's out of date. So we're waiting for that permit to be sent, and that could easily have an arsenic number in there. There is language in the contract which kind of blends our responsibilities and makes Veolia pass some of that on to their customers, which is great, and makes them responsible for a portion of it. But we may see increased costs at some point.
Okay.
There's a lot going on.
Oh, there's a lot going
Very
on.
complicated. Okay, any other questions? Fred, you have your hand up?
Fred?
I think that's up for.
I think it's hands stuck up.
All right, go ahead. Good, you did it. Okay, good.
Okay, so I think we're good. It was WPCA?
You go with WBCA, you need more, any questions on it? Okay, no. What we've been waiting for.
Okay, so there's a increase in the DPW budget of about $350,000. 230 of that is garbage related due to the problems with the garbage situation. As you may know, the state of Connecticut, or we were using Mira for our garbage disposal, and Mira was incinerating garbage. And Mira's plant needed significant upgrades, and they were requesting help from the state. The state refused to provide them any help. They wanted the towns to sign up for extremely high increases in garbage and guarantee disposal for the next 20 years to Mira, so they could upgrade the plant.
Was it like $300 million?
Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. So you would have seen huge increases in garbage costs. So we negotiated a contract with F&G Construction, who's I guess the parent of USA, who collects our trash, to collect our trash for us. They offered us very competitive rates, plus a guarantee that after 2 years, we would look at all our costs and we would see a savings over Mira. So we want Mira to be successful, because if they have great pricing, we'll get that plus more. So I don't want to wish Mira bad, but we have a good deal, but it is increasing in cost. A lot of that is due to the recycling market. Recycling originally was costing us probably $30 a ton. Now it is risen up to $80 or $90 a ton. So that's really where a lot of the costs are going. But again, we're gonna see those benefits. And right now we're tracking around what it would have cost us to go to Mira. But we're expecting this as recycling, which it does rise, and then it falls and it moves around, we're expecting it to be better.
Jim,
The
are we
state,
still going on that road trip to the new recycling plant?
yes,
That's
yes.
scheduled?
I don't know that it's scheduled yet, but we'll get it
But we
scheduled.
wanna do that.
And, but the state does not want to see, they don't necessarily like incineration. But there's no other option in the state. There's no landfills.
So you're being soft, tell it like it is.
Oh, you're better at that. Their solution is to see increased recycling.
Their solution
Is
is
not,
for us to pay 1.2 million more next year, we're not gonna do it.
yes, yes.
And
They want to
for
see you
every
guys, they want to
Person
see,
who buys groceries to pay like 5% more for packaging and things like that. They want all the costs passed on to the consumer and to the municipalities. And Naugatuck, Waterbury, Bristol have formed a group to attack it.
so our garbage costs,
Okay,
will go- they'll be going up. They're more controlled than they would have been and hopefully stabilized for the next 5 years. Most of them have signed with F&G.
We got a better deal.
We got a better
We
deal.
were first.
Okay, so regular payroll is down slightly, just some calculations. We have not requested any extra men this year. We're still working on filling vacant positions. We have a rather strenuous hiring process. We require CDLs. We have a written test that normally we test 40 or 50 people, and I think, 10 pass that, and then we run them through a practical, and then we maybe interview 5 out of the 50 people we gave a test to, and then we end up hiring 1 or 2. So we've got another batch of 50 people are gonna hopefully be going through the process soon. But we feel that it's better to hire the right person than 4 or 5. We did that in the past, and you live with the wrong person forever. Unfortunately, the right people sometimes say, I'm going somewhere else, because you hire such qualified people that they have some great opportunities after they've worked for us for a couple of years.
We're building great resumes for them too.
We are,
It's competitive, you know, it's competitive.
And getting rid of the pension was a great thing, but you don't have your hook in people. They go where their opportunity is the best.
I understand that completely.
So,
Nicole, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I had a quick question going back to the trash and recycling. If their goal is for us to be recycling more, is there any talk about weekly recycle pickups instead of the bi-weekly?
So, I'll say it. The problem is that recycling is great environmentally, but it requires actually more manpower and will actually cost more, not just to pick it up, but even when you get it to the plant, you need more men to separate it because people don't recycle properly and there are components, and then there's glass. So recycling needs a total remake, and it just so happens that the people we deal with have built an automated recycling plant that separates, I don't know, glass, all types of things. And it's a much better model than the state's model. So part of our, I'll say our COG is to work with them to have automated recycling and some other things that will keep the costs lower than just charging municipalities more. So
and the state is pushing pay as you throw. So buy bags, fill the bags and throw them in the trash bag can, and then they're also wanting to push food recycling. So you put food in bags and have a special truck, another truck.
And I have
driving around
3
collecting it.
trucks, you have 3 trucks,
So
for
it's
the
just-
food, for the recycling, for the trash, more people, more expense, it's a nightmare,
And the
but.
residents would have to pay for the bags.
And
Yeah,
then the
so-
state's funding none of it, so
So-
we're unfunded.
Yeah, so what happens is
Essentially.
you end up spending so much for the bags and the distribution of the bags, that you spend more than you were before to throw away less garbage. So
That makes sense.
Go ahead and go.
And people,
but
people don't like the idea of the bags and everything else. We brought that up, what?
2 years ago?
2 years ago? People were throwing tomatoes at us.
But to answer your question, you can get an extra recycling cart. And, you know, it may be a pain to hold that cart for 2 weeks, but you can recycle all you can.
We're gonna issue every resident 3 chickens.
Thank you.
Probably less money to do that too.
Okay, the next change is, part-time labor. So there's three increases. Part-time recreation, part-time recycling center, and part-time at Hop Brook Ball. Those are all minimum wage increases. I haven't proposed any staffing increases, just minimum wage increases and a little bit to the people right above them to keep that difference, so that they're all not making exactly the same funding. The next item is increase for overtime and recreation. So they've increased the usage of their building. They're also expecting salary raises in that area, so they would like to see an increase of $500 in overtime. Next is clothing and uniforms. This is a contractual item to reimburse people for the clothing and uniform allowance and provide them with vests and safety supplies as we deem necessary. And next is longevity bonus. That's a contractual item. That's for additional personnel who retain that time where they get a longevity bonus. Then employee reimbursements, that's a CDL and reimbursement, so they have to pay extra money for their CDL, that's a driver's license, and their annual.
Yeah, and medical, biannual.
Every other year, they have to get a medical card, so we go through with
Summer,
Yeah.
it depends on their health.
depending on the person, so we go through and figure out who's getting it, calculate the money, and give a stab in the dark. But that's our guess of what we're gonna have to reimburse this year, a little bit more than last year. Conference and dues, that's strictly some minor increases in costs for different conferences and dues that have always been in the budget. Then we have evictions. Fran can talk about that a little bit. That's a stab in the dark. I know there's gonna be a significant increase this year, but over the history, if you look at the past, it goes up and down. But there's been some big increases, as far as I know, this year with fires and housing people.
But Jim, on the evictions, is Public Works still transporting?
No, we don't do that anymore. It's all, the marshal's gotta get all the stuff off the curb and bring it to our vendor. We pay for the storage for the required amount of
For
time.
30 days?
We pay a one-time fee of $850 to ACE to take it, and then anything additional is to whoever owns the property, the personal property, if they want to get it out of storage.
Okay, so we're out of that storage business and.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no, that's.
Jim, can I add that it's listed under evictions, but it's more than just evictions, it's fire victims. If a house is condemned, then the people living in the house, if they don't have other means, we have to house them according to state statute for whatever period of time was allowed. And we had a very busy year this year with those type of incidents. We've had the mobile homes that had a fuel leak, oil leak in it, that of course had to remove people, have the people leave. And just one incident alone, we're up to almost $30,000 in paying for housing. In on one property, multi-family house, so this is before the recent fire. So it takes in much more than just evictions.
And it's getting worse.
Yes, it is.
And it's also complicated by the fact that there's no available housing in Norderbrook. So when you have to replace them, like the Lantern Park Fire, the tenants, to some extent, every case is different, but in some cases, we have to provide them alternative housing. There is no alternative housing, so it gets to be expensive.
Is there a limit as to how long we have to house?
This is a very good question, Diane. So there, I'm gonna say we got 4 legal opinions, all 4 were different. So what we're gonna do is, we're trying to set up the test case so we can, I'm gonna say, implement the, I should not, we're gonna go for an amount over the limit and force the judge to make a rule. Because some people say there's a limit, some say there isn't. Sometimes people sue towns because they say there's a limit, and then they, so it's inconsistently applied across the state. So we're gonna try and force a decision that we can either get the lower amount, or if we have to pay the higher amount, at least we know about it.
Exactly. I mean, at least tell us what we have, it's 30
Right.
days, 60 days, whatever, and what's comparable. And I'm assuming that if the landlord or the homeowner has insurance, then this does
Well,
not take effect.
Yeah, the homeowners are covered, it's the tenants.
Well, that's what I'm saying, if the
And if
landlord,
they have insurance, we go there first.
okay,
Often, sometimes the insurance is only for
30 days.
or
2
less.
days.
Huh?
And I'll use a generic case. Person, house is destroyed one way or another, and they're not the homeowner, they're renters, they're tenants, they have renter's insurance. And quite often, you guys are in the insurance business, you know how it works, but depending on your policy, you might only have a $1,500 limit on your housing, on your temporary housing. Now, that could get at the cheapest, at the lowest price of a hotel room, 14 days.
Yeah.
At the average price, you could get 4 or 5 days. And unfortunately, we had a case recently where the person had a $1,500 limit, but the insurance company told them, well, this is who we do business with, go to this hotel. And they're saying, oh, I could only go 4 days there. If I go to this one, which is just as good, I could go 14 days.
Mhm.
And the insurance company basically, and I didn't hear the entire conversation, but I sat in with them. The insurance company basically said, this is where you have to go.
Wow.
And,
Well, they can't do that.
we have.
That's a lazy adjuster.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say, they really can't do that.
And.
That's another
That's
conversation.
a good idea that when you get renter's insurance, pay attention to, if you could just maybe pay $5 a month more, it might be worth it in the long run.
Well, the town actually has that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and in the recent fire of the 4 families that were renting, only 2 had renter's insurance. We've also had a case where the house was condemned, and if we condemn the house, then it's an action that we took. When I say we, the town,
Yeah,
building
yeah.
inspector, fire marshal, whatever. And we had one that is, the housing is approaching $30,000. That we're paying.
That's gonna be the test case right there.
Yeah, that's,
In that case, we're gonna say there is no limit, so therefore we should get the full 30,000, not 4,000 back.
thank you.
And there is a limit out, they say, well, we could lean, there's a lien on the house of 4,000, but the law is so vague. it doesn't say 4,000 per tenant, 4,000 per family, 4,000 per unit. It just,
Doesn't even say 4,000.
really, it doesn't.
That's just the number we use.
And, well, that's the number,
Well, they write these articles about what a statute means. So it's an opinion of someone, and someone has an opinion that it should be 4,000. Well,
and if
that's
that
not
was
what
written
the
20
statute
years
says.
ago.
Fair.
But, this is really a terrible year for that type of incident, unfortunately. I mean, it's no fault of us, it's no fault of the town. This is the year that we did nail with it.
So I'm gonna let you guys in your wisdom put a number there.
But we didn't put the number. No, that's, it's your department, I don't know. And,
Okay, so, next is, bulk trash. This is going up, fairly reasonably because of, we added today, dumpster bids, for disposal of things from the transfer station have increased. It's additional cost. MSW recycling, collection, so that's, the contract with the, USA to actually collect the garbage, that's a contractual increase in the contract.
We'll stop there. That's what our increase is, unless the state imposes this new law that will raise that number to 1.2 million,
Yes,
which is what we're fighting.
exactly. Then we have, lighting maintenance. So this is our lighting account to, fix the, street lights in town. We also use it to fix the, field lights and to, replace the downtown light poles. Current year, we have had to buy, additional stock. When we upgrade all the lights to LED, we bought some extra stock with the extra funding we had. We basically ran through that and we bought a few extra stock, but from now on, we're gonna have to continue every year to buy a few lights here and there, so we have them in stock, we can get the equipment back up, because it's months and months to wait to get them. Big ticket items are, field lights when they go bad, to repair them. Also, we had to order, it took us like 9 months to get them in, new downtown decorative, fixtures. Probably about a third of the time, someone hits them and we know who it is, they have insurance, and we can go after them and get it picked up. Probably 2/3 of the time, the person drives away. You know, they back into it, a truck goes around a corner too tight, knocks it over and drives away. And we have a broken fixture and a broken pole, and they are crazy expensive. They are $7,000 for a pole and a light fixture. So I'm hoping that they come down shortly, because they used to be closer to the $4,000, $3,500 number, but they become extremely expensive. So that's to kind of cover us with the increasing cost. At this point, we are only repairing lights that are absolutely needed. We're trying to hold till the new budget, but we are limiting repairs at this point. Next is repairs to building. That we've consistently gone over that account line item, repairing boilers, windows, leaks, roofs, heaters, I mean, plumbing, electrical problems. It's just one thing after another.
Along the street building, it's just an old building.
Exactly, so we're trying to be a little closer to the actual budget line item. And the next item is repairs to sprinklers. That's an increase in costs. So we're asking for another $1,000 in that. Everything has gone up this year. Motor vehicle parts, another difficult year for parts. Our guys do a lot of, obviously, repairs in-house. This is to account for us to buy the parts for the maintenance and repair of the building, or the cars and trucks and equipment we use. And everything has gone up in price. And as I said, try to do as much in-house as we can. We are holding the actual repairs to motor vehicles line item for the outside repairs. I think we raised that last year, but we're hoping that it's gonna be in good shape also for next year. So we would look for an increase in that. The next is the actual.
Wait a minute,
Sorry?
question on repairs to motor vehicles.
Yes.
So you've gotten a lot of new vehicles, so I'm imagining that these vehicles, because they're newer, they're not breaking down, it's the cost of the part that's
You
increasing.
would hope to say that, but from what I've seen is the newer vehicles, yeah, maybe they don't break down as soon and they're under warranty for that year. But boy, when they break down, they're a lot more expensive to fix. You know, they're a lot more complex. More often they need to go to the dealer to get repaired. I mean, what are you telling me about an F-550 where you have a problem and you actually have to take the entire truck off the chassis and lift it up and.
Take the motor out sometimes.
Yeah, to do, something that's fairly, simple on
Says
an
the
old
same
truck.
thing about
So
the
it's
new
just.
car, so-
The cost of parts has gone through.
It's gone, yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean, so like, I wasn't sure if it was an increase in cost for the parts or increase in repairs. You know what I'm saying, you know how I'm differentiating that, you know what I'm
I'm
saying?
saying since the fleet has gotten a little larger,
Right, larger, but also newer,
newer.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly in part price increases,
okay.
And we do find that we have
and we shop around.
a few big repairs, a year.
And you never know
And,
what's coming.
and
Right,
just,
you don't-
and we
Just
can't
when
plan,
you
but
think you do, you don't.
we could have a $30,000 repair on a truck.
My brand new
And
car.
we will,
2
we
years
will.
old, 2 years old, need a new radiator and a new fuel pump, just after warranty, so I know,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, so it
It's-
is,
it's
it's
amazing.
ridiculous, yeah.
But with the emissions and
Okay.
it's just.
Diane, so we have to keep in mind that Public Works repairs vehicles, and not just Public Works vehicles, other vehicles too, for other
Yes.
departments.
Yeah.
And so that adds to their cost, it's a cost you don't see in the other department.
Shouldn't that be in their budget for the parts?
Department, like if we're talking to
I
police
think it would
department. they have to-
overcomplicate it because.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay,
All these little.
Yeah, and then we
numbers
gotta deal with sending them the bill for their spark plugs and their oil.
okay, no, I was talking about major repairs, not the
Oh.
little stuff, I
Yeah,
was
but
talking
they're
about.
not, but the problem is they don't know how to schedule for air conditioning,
Yeah.
$1,000 air conditioning repair. They'll put a couple $100 for an oil change and the tires and they're done. We're still, seeing the old police cars on occasion, still have some
Okay,
before they all get swapped out. It's a constant problem too. So then we've got the tipping fees, which we talked about, which is the increase in contractual, increase in volume, increase in recycling costs, which we're hoping to get now. Road repairs, we're asking for another $10,000 in the road repair line, and that's strictly due to the increase in asphalt. That asphalt's gone up by about at least 15% in the last
Yeah,
couple of
maybe a
years.
little more.
15-20%. So we're gonna talk about paving in a few weeks. We're gonna ask for a standard increase in the paving budget, but really now we're getting no increase because the cost is gonna chew that up. Paint for fields, another thing it's trying to bring this in line with what actual costs are. Paint has gone up tremendously in cost as well. There was that shortage quite some time ago. I think it still caused the paint to go up, but we have an additional field online and we gotta paint it. We've been stealing, from other accounts to make it work, to buy paint, but that's what we feel we need.
speaking of fields,
Yes.
well, do you have anything that has to do with the new skate skate park? Like, there's really no maintenance that's gonna happen with the skate park, is there?
No.
Okay,
We're not expecting anything.
okay. Just graffiti cleaner.
Graffiti.
Yeah,
They say they maintain it pretty well, talking to those guys.
Yeah, they don't want to
Like,
see.
as long as it's
police it
appropriate
themselves pretty well.
graffiti, like, it's okay if it stays, I think that's kind of the look that it's
They-
supposed to have, as long as it's not.
Interesting talking to them, is they don't wanna see it
Interesting.
graffiti because they say it gets slick. And they wanna have a little bit of surface, a little roughness, so they're gonna, and then what they're saying is the guys who graffiti it aren't the skaters, they're the
Right.
guys that don't skate.
And there are cameras down there
Everyone.
now, right?
Hmm?
There's cameras down there.
There
now
will
as
be,
well.
there will be. Okay, the next, three items are increases in cost for lime, seed, and fertilizer for the recreation parks, Hot Brook, golf. We've talked to the vendors, and this is just the seed has just gone crazy, as well as all the fertilizer costs and with the war and everything, I guess they make a lot of fertilizer in Ukraine. Causes all sorts of problems with us here. Okay, so street capital outlay, we want to go to. Yeah, so street capital, outlay. We want to go to page 9 of 15. and talk about those. We're gonna put Jeremy on the hot seat. I'm gonna talk about, yes, we're going to talk about his public works street capital outlay request.
All right, we've got a 16-inch demo saw that goes on one of our construction trucks, well. That's instant. That's just rotating one of our other ones out that's getting tired. They're running every day out, cutting asphalt, cutting metal, I'm ready to do, so that's a rotation out on one of our construction trucks. Generator, at this time, if our power goes out, we're using the portable one from the fire department, which has kind of been acting up lately. We'll also use it as a light tower, so we wanted to get something in that street department building that could be there and be used in case of power outage.
You already have the transfer switch and exterior plug?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, it's set up to receive that one as it sits, so we can do, yeah, so we'll be good on that. We need to do a snow blower at the street department. We currently, the one we use, we had built 10 years ago out of 3 other snow blowers that were thrown out by another department. In the last few years, not so much this year, we've had to go and snow blow some sidewalks that residents weren't taken care of and billing those residents, so we need a new one. The one that we have now is not operational anymore.
Jeremy,
Yes,
does Michelle keep track of those buildings?
I'll usually write up the bill and we send it to finance, and then finance sends out the bill.
Who keeps track of whether it gets paid?
Finance.
That's
Are
why
they
it goes
paying?
to finance.
Are people paying?
We didn't have any this year. Last year, I think we got the one.
But they
Last year
can
was on
follow up, they
City
can
Hill
track
Street.
them down.
I believe police
They
department
do.
ticketed them too.
We can do second billings and we keep a track on.
Last year was quite a bit on
As
City
long
Hill
as you're
Street,
keeping track of it.
Rubber Avenue.
I wouldn't mind seeing a lien if they're not gonna pay it, lien their
Well, you
property.
can't. I mean, well, we're gonna do a new sidewalk ordinance.
Okay.
I don't think we can under the current one, but,
Okay.
You're paying more to the attorney than you will.
I don't care, I don't care.
Yeah, I
I
get
don't
it.
Yeah,
care.
it's crazy. The amount, especially on City Hill Street, dangerous for the kids walking.
Yeah, the kids are lost.
Mhm.
Next two are both strobe kits, one for a truck, one for the 190 excavator we purchased last year. We did factory, flashes and strobes on those, hoping to cut costs. Turns out it's just not enough. We have to add, like we had always done in the past, some extra strobes just for safety issues. Truck 2 was out on the road. I thought we were gonna get hit by somebody that just wasn't cutting it, so we're gonna add some strobe stoves for safety. Next one's a welder. On a lot of our construction jobs, we have a welder in the garage. Matt, our mechanic, is a tremendous welder and fabricator. It's unbelievable the work he does. But we found we need to do some welding out on job sites to equipment or whatever. So this is something he wanted to be able to take out. We don't currently have on our tool truck. And in our 5-year plan, we do have a new tool truck, and so this would be something that could go on that in the future, would go as part of that. Jackhammer, the cordless jackhammer, on one of our construction trucks. We're currently on that truck running a gas jackhammer. It's about 9 years old. It's been really finicky. Just, it didn't work out. It was like fuel injected and bad design. So we've been using it for quite a few years now, but it's time to just cut bait on that piece of equipment. The tracking patch and mini excavator, I think we purchased that, 5 years ago now. That was probably one of the best purchases this town has ever made. That machine owes this town nothing. But the rubber tracks on it get replaced every few years as they get worn down, so that's a replacement part. And that's it for me. On to Sandra. Unless anybody has any questions on those pieces of equipment.
Thank you. I moved that chair. Well, I'm like, I felt so
Sorry.
bad, I couldn't
I
see
could have
you.
popped up. I could have popped up.
The next is for the park department. I've requested to put in a rough cut deck. It's a deck that's an attachment I currently have for our Ventrac. It was a attachment that was on the original Ventrac that was bought several years ago. It's a very important part of the mowing of the heavy brush and even on slopes and such. So it's getting tired and we need a new one. 'Cause once it goes down, it's usually down for a few weeks and it really kills the whole season. Try to get the bank behind the baseball fields and so forth, the bank by the schools, all the slopes for the, we do a lot of cutting of the, by the grandstand of the high school and it's time for graduation, big games and such.
By the way, Sandra has become a Ventrac convert.
Good job.
It's a good little machine, I'm not gonna lie, I was skeptical. I think Diane never wanted to hear the word Ventrac said again. Park trash cans, I had budgeted last year for 4,000, I'm asking for another 4,000. The trash cans are super expensive, but in the long run, they're gonna help us tremendously. These trash cans are gonna be the plastic ones outdoors. I'm trying to eliminate those 55-gallon metal drums that are dented and rusted and the process of emptying now is emptying them into a 96-gallon toter. The toter gets pulled up onto a truck and emptied, and the truck can only carry so much, so it's a back and forth. These are gonna be lined with bags so that you can just pull them out, and it's gonna cut the time and the physical effort of the employees. So that's for additional trash cans. I have small equipment replacement every year. I'm requesting a demo saw. The street department has one. It cuts through asphalt or concrete. We've come into many issues where usually when we're working, they're working at the same time, so it's tough to coordinate. So we're looking to get our own within the park department, and then another leaf blower and a trimmer, which just get a lot of wear and tear throughout the season. I'm also requesting a lower lift attachment. It's $4,000. We currently have a vehicle lift in the park department that was left behind from the armory when it was in use. It's a great lift for our smaller trucks, but this attachment will hook onto it to be able to raise our mowers up in the air so that we can service them and clean up properly after usage. And it's attachment that gets attached to the existing lift. And that's all I got.
Okay. Jeremy, you want to talk about the
Joe's
piece?
Yeah, it's an attachment for his backhoe that he bought last year. It's a 4-in-1 type bucket. We utilize it with the street department too. The front bucket that scoops, it's basically another attachment that can open up and grab and just be more efficient around the golf course. They're constantly moving topsoil, moving this and that. It's an efficiency thing. Joe wanted to add on to that piece of equipment.
And then the last is the recreation. They're looking to replace some picnic tables. There was an item last year in the budget for replacing picnic tables. Unfortunately, they wanted 4. I only put, I put 4 in the budget, but only put the price of 1 in the line item. So this would be a request for the remaining 3. They're extremely expensive. I guess the wood ones fall apart, get set on fire. These are actually steel, vinyl coated, hopefully last forever. So we'd like to start putting those slowly in the various parts. I think that's it for the budget.
What about for parks? Isn't there some heavy duty work that's gonna be done on playgrounds? Does that come out of the capital budget or something else, or?
Yes, we're
Coming
gonna
out
be
of capital.
proposing some capital park upgrades.
The items that have no pricing, are those still on like the secondary list
Those are
Where, like-
previous years.
of what we approved?
Yes. Maybe we can delete that, but those were previous years.
Okay.
Easy with the golf course,
That was the graphic,
that's the gravel.
yes.
Okay.
One question, going back on those light poles that you mentioned, that get replaced, and they're, sounds like they're almost like double the cost now. Are they in like the same area that they're commonly getting hit by? Like, should we entertain maybe looking at like a camera put up, I don't know, a street corner or something where we can get that truck or car that, I mean, obviously
I'd
it's
say they're
hopefully
pretty
not the same.
random. There's the one under the Maple Street Bridge that has gotten it, but I don't think we've ever not gotten an insurance claim on that one, because there is a.
There's a camera on that one, I think.
So that's pretty much the main one.
But it's amazing, people just drive off the road randomly, it's unbelievable. You see, I know, a couple of years ago, we had one in front of the senior center, and the lady was upside down on the bank, and I just don't.
Right, but my point though, is it the same poles that we're replacing, or is it always a different one?
Generally, it's a different.
It's been a different
It's pretty
one.
random, except that one, James.
Okay.
It's
I'd also
random.
like to say, I mean, this is, I think, my 4th cycle being on this committee, and you guys always use your equipment beyond its life cycle. And I don't think you guys get enough appreciation for doing as such, because when you guys are asking for stuff, it's, I mean, hands down, no questions asked, approved in my book. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
The public works has come a long way in 10 years.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. 20.
Yeah, ever since Sandy got on.
Yeah. it's a coincidence.
Oh, so that's
I'll take all the credit. I'd love to say I did take it, but I don't.
Yeah, we're good, we're all set. Jim, you're all set?
I really want to talk about overtime, winter overtime. We're the only department that has a special overtime line item, and it very much complicates the payroll process. And we've talked about it quite often, and I just want to merge those street overtime and winter overtime together. It's complicating the payroll process, and it's keeping you from automating a large piece of your payroll system.
Is there a reason it's separate?
There's no
wasn't-
reason, I mean, they could be all.
No, yeah, years ago, no. Years ago, it was not separated. If I'm not, Jim, do you remember? I mean, I don't think it, Kay, you might know.
And not since I've been here. I've been here 16 years. It was always separate.
I always remember being separate.
Okay.
So all the other departments have large overtime, and it's really important from an operational perspective to merge them.
Yeah, there's more overtime.
So that's merging.
But you have to merge them, you have to merge them into, if you're gonna try to make it easier for ease of payroll, you're gonna have to merge some money into park and street and golf course overtime, because all of
That's
those
fine.
play an
We'll get a
intricate
ratio.
part.
But she wants it all together.
Right, but it's gotta each, because the employees are coded to
Yeah.
accounts, so there's gotta be a portion going to the other departments.
Because they work in the winter plowing.
Let me just make, each of these recreation vehicle, street are all, the overtime's assigned by the person who works in the area. So when an overtime is coded to a person, it defaults to the right place except for winter. Winter is a manual process that makes a mess of the whole thing, so I have no problem ratioing
Yeah,
it out for you any way you like. I just, winter overtime is, it's not benefiting. I haven't seen a benefit for it.
I agree.
Just saying.
Unless somebody came back to this board and said, hey, there's a lot of overtime where you could explain, well, X amount was done in plowing and it had to get done.
That's probably what
Somebody probably said, geez, there's a lot of overtime that's.
Yeah, well, all of a sudden,
So
we get to the end of the year with
To that.
25 storms,
You probably have like
and
a
we
crazy
blow our
winter
budget.
year.
Why do you guys have so much
Point.
overtime? Well,
Right.
this is,
Yeah.
so you can do it.
That's-
I mean, we can still say that
That's what it
because
was.
it's gonna be true,
Well,
but.
we also track it now too, which is, because Jeremy does a good job of tracking storms and stuff.
You can
so we don't
still-
know where it was
What's
affected.
happening tonight, Jeremy?
You can
Right?
still do it,
Hey,
you
yeah,
can
rain
still
all
do
that.
it because the DOT website is telling you every day that there's a storm. So you can actually go out there, pick the storm date and just tie it to the payroll date of overtime.
Yeah,
And it's pretty much gonna be winter
and like I
overtime.
said, Jeremy keeps a good records of the storms too,
Yeah,
so
we have
he knows
full
when there's
records of-
storms and what's affected by
He
it.
has a storm journal.
I
Yes,
do.
yeah.
I can bring it next
Can
time.
you share it?
Jeremy's.
Instead of having like
version.
lightning bolts on.
No, because I think that that's where you could run into, people could challenge. People could challenge and say, okay, well, there's $200,000 in winter overtime, okay? And I'm just being devil's advocate because I'm fully supportive of doing that, but protecting them too. It's $200,000 in winter overtime, but there weren't that many storms, but, so let's say now it's 200 plus whatever, okay? Well, okay, well, we needed overtime here, so we're just gonna take it and we won't blow our overtime budget because we didn't use it in winter, so we'll use it in the summer.
We do it anyway,
Yeah,
because if we have projects, we gotta get them completed,
Yeah, like
so
right now, we're
whether, if
building
we
the
have extra money
skate
in winter
park,
overtime,
the
we're gonna
disc
request
golf.
They're doing
a
catch
transfer
basins
out.
and they're on
because we need
winter
to
over.
get our projects done.
Yeah.
So Diane, if you look at 21 and 22, see where winter overtime exceeded the budget?
Yeah.
That was taken from the other overtime, and that happens more often than not.
Oh, I
So
agree.
I'm saying, what you're talking about is happening on the opposite end, and they're sacrificing
Just
their
make it
overtime
one
for
bank
winter.
of overtime
Okay.
anyway.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's where, because I do remember, I remember this so vividly. Maybe we need to go back to somebody like Ray.
No, let's not go back, let's go forward.
But I'm saying is that's why things were separated. That's why things were separated.
Well, there might have been a passion in the past that no longer exists.
Okay, but, okay, I'm fine with it.
Move on.
So are we gonna do that now, tonight?
No,
No, Peachy can do it.
she's gonna do it internally.
Okay.
I would like to combine, recycling center overtime. 'Cause that's a nightmare to track.
Yeah.
That's when we take a street guy and put him in the recycling center, to pack containers. And
Yes.
that is just a nightmare to track. So if we could take that and put it into overtime, that would be, as helpful as, because that's a,
So whoever's operating the loader to push down the boxes on Thursdays and Saturdays gets paid out of that account. But when payroll gets done, sometimes it's not coded right, so it doesn't come out, so we end up having to do a general ledger. It's always a street department employee, so it should go into the street department section. Doesn't really matter where, I mean, it's mandatory to have a
That's what it
machine.
mostly is anyway.
Yes. it
Yes.
always
It's
is.
only one reason.
It's one
Right.
employee from the street department
I
every
agree.
Thursday and Saturday during facility hours. And
I agree.
that's an exact number based on their salary for the amount of hours that the recycling center's open. So it doesn't really matter that it's on in a separate account line item.
See, the juices are churning now.
Yes.
I just felt something burning.
In a good,
So when we
good
get our
way.
final versions of these and we vote on them, are we expecting these to be combined?
Yes.
Okay.
Allison, can I ask a question?
Sure, go ahead, Jay.
Shouldn't the evictions category be recategorized because we're doing it for people displaced by fires and whatnot too?
My thought, Jim, was to have an offline conversation with Fran and Jim afterward, because if we have a very good idea that something's gonna get reimbursed, it probably shouldn't go in the eviction. And we just didn't name for the rest of it. If we
That's
know-
what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking also. So take a look at that one too.
So Jan, the answer to you is we just need a little brainstorming, but yes.
If you go by the insurance term, it's alternate living expense.
Yeah, well, it would go into our insurance fund, which
what's
is
in
a
the policy.
reimbursable rotating fund. It rotates like this.
Very fast.
So yes, Jan.
Any other questions for Jim? Okay, good, you're up.
All right, so I'm gonna try and take a crack at the big picture, where we are. And for the new people, you know, every year when we get to the end, we provide a few scenarios and make some choices. What's different this year is we have reval. So based on our revaluation, right now, we could reduce the mill rate by 10 mills and then at that point, work on our new spending items and adjust it accordingly. The problem with reval is it impacts different people in many different ways. Some people, mostly business and industry, go way down. Some people stay close to the same. Some people go way up. And the people who go way up, for the most part, are, I'm gonna say, senior citizens, you know, lower value homes are taking the biggest hit on reval. So most likely, well, first of all, the borough board is going to phase in reval. We're talking about exactly how we're gonna do it. And try and do it in a fair way so that the people who are gonna go way down will get a bigger bump in year one. And then gradually they'll go down in years 2, 3, 4, and 5. And the same thing with the people who are getting hit, they'll go up gradually rather than all at once. So what a scenario, and by the way, this is my view today, it changes almost every week, but what a potential scenario could look like is that we would drop the mill rate 40%, or I'm gonna say 4 mills this year, 2 next year, 2 the year after, and 2 the year after, or 4, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. But remember, that doesn't take into account increased spending. It doesn't take into account the fact that we are no longer gonna be reliant on our fund balance, because we want to have a AAA credit rating, and that's really the only major obstacle to us getting there. So we've always planned on doing that this year, and I still intend to. Of course, we don't know what's gonna happen with the Board of Ed. Their budget is 2.9, their request is plus 2.9 million. But there's a pretty good chance that the state is gonna dramatically increase their ECS, the amount of money that the state gives to education. So that's a big variable. But having said all of that, we've been playing with some scenarios with Allison, Shelby, and I think that it's gonna look something like we do a 40% reval increase in year one. We have 1.2 million in new revenue. Well, actually higher than that, but a minimum of 1.2 million in new revenue. We're gonna eliminate any fund balance use. And then we're gonna make our final decisions on the budget on the town side. You know, I think on the town side, it's gonna be pretty close to our new revenue. On the Board of Ed side, it's like way over. But we don't know where they're gonna be on ECS. But I think that that there's gonna be, in the end, a 4 mil increase, a decrease with about 1 mil being added back in, plus some new revenue and things like that. And we'll play out a whole bunch of scenarios. You know, people don't understand that your mill rate going down does not equate to where your tax bill is. So this is gonna be a crazy year because, you know, some people are gonna be about the same, some are gonna do a little better, some are gonna do a little worse, some are gonna do a lot worse, and some are gonna do a lot better. So, it's gonna be interesting, but from a fairness, just from a pure equity standpoint, it seems that it's the fairest thing to do is to phase it in so that no one gets really hurt, you know, on the lower end. And on the people who are getting reductions, that they would get a 40% reduction in year one, but it would be, the rest of their reduction would be spread out. So that's sort of the, I'm gonna say, the general area of what we're looking at. And, we'll see when we get there, we'll put it all together and we'll try and come up with the fairest package that we can. But remember, part of what we're doing is, and we've done a lot over the last several years to improve our financial picture. But I would say the only like scoring point when a bonding agency looks at us is our reliance on the fund balance, which really shouldn't even count because every nickel we took out of the fund balance, we put back in or more. But the mere fact that we use that approach takes away from our scoring. So I want to go to AAA. I think everyone does. And this is the best year to totally reduce any reliance on the fund balance.
On the Board of Ed budget, when they do their presentation, you're doing that here or at the Board of Ed?
I set it up for there with Bernice and Chris.
So in 2 weeks, when we do the Board of Ed budget, that's gonna be out at the, high school, Board of Ed. And everyone should get the notebooks next week.
I'll ask again, so you know what to do before.
Yeah, I'm already. Well, next one, Chris. Okay, tonight.
Oh, well, so you have.
We have a special.
Yeah.
Same
Talk
time.
to them, well,
Same time.
Hey, do we have any, we have anything else for workshop tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Rocky? Do we have anything else? Okay, Bob?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Yes. 7:54.
I didn't think we needed to do that.
Well, we do it.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.